If you thought the Caitlin Clark debate was cooling down, think again, because Cheryl Miller just stepped in with a flamethrower and roasted Sheryl Swoopes so hard, she might need a timeout to recover. Let's be real. If there's anyone in women's basketball history who has the right to set things straight, it's Cheryl freaking Miller. We're talking about the original basketball legend, the player who was so dominant, she made women's basketball must-watch before the WNBA even existed. Cheryl Miller didn't just torch defenses, she redefined the game and put respect on women's hoops, long before social media even had a chance to amplify the conversation. Let's rewind for a second. Sheryl Swoopes, a Hall of Famer and three-time MVP, has been one of the loudest voices throwing shade at Caitlin Clark. Whether it's about the media hype, her place in the league, or the supposed unfair advantages, Swoopes has had a lot to say, and let's just say, she's not exactly drinking from the Caitlin Clark fan club cup. Normally, when a WNBA legend speaks, people listen. But here's the thing, her criticisms have started to sound a bit too salty. Instead of celebrating Caitlin Clark as a generational talent, it's starting to feel more like gatekeeping than actual analysis. And that's where Cheryl Miller comes in like a wrecking ball. Let's be honest. If anyone has the authority to shut this debate down, it's Cheryl Miller.
Because it needs to be said, I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my skin color. Yeah. I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. Mm-hmm. And people just having, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. Mm-hmm. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Right. In a recent interview that had fans buzzing, Cheryl Miller didn't just step into the Caitlin Clark debate, she bulldozed right through it. While she didn't directly call out Sheryl Swoopes in a disrespectful way, Miller made it clear that some folks in the WNBA are totally missing the point. As a basketball legend who's witnessed the game evolve from its early days to the powerhouse it is now, Miller didn't hold back. She put major respect on Caitlin Clark's name, sending a message that should make even the loudest critics take a step back.
Davis hounding Clark. Clark, step back three, knocks it down!
And the best part? She did it in a way that completely dismantles everything Swoopes has been pushing. Let's be real, Miller isn't just any former player. She's one of the most dominant forces to ever touch a basketball. She was torching defenders long before Swoopes even entered the picture. Miller played in an era with no WNBA, no big-name sponsorships, and no massive contracts, and yet, she still became a legend. That's the kind of authority she's speaking from, one that demands respect.
Southern Cal 30-2 in the year, Louisiana Tech 31-1. And the opening tip is controlled by Kim.
Cheryl Miller didn't just say Caitlin Clark deserves respect. She made it painfully clear why the arguments against her are outdated, bitter, and honestly embarrassing. Miller pointed out what every true basketball fan already knows. Greatness isn't about who came first or who struggled more. It's about who's dominating the game now. And right now, that's Caitlin Clark. Meanwhile, Swoopes and others seem stuck in the past, acting like the game owes them something for the struggles they faced. But Miller gets it. Basketball evolves, and new stars rise in different ways. The WNBA needed a spark, and Caitlin Clark is delivering it in real time. Miller made it clear that every sport needs a superstar to take it to new heights, and whether Swoopes likes it or not, Clark is bringing more eyes, more money, and more attention to the WNBA than anyone before her.
He's alluding to here, and they showed a little clip of it, is there was this clip that went viral after one of Caitlin Clark's games. Cheryl Miller was there, and Caitlin ran up to her Cheryl gave her some words and told her that she had a great game and gave her a big hug. In that time, when that moment happened, it really did feel like the world was against Caitlyn. There's a lot of these media narratives going around. And so a lot of people who are fans of Caitlyn Clark and thought that she maybe deserved better and didn't deserve some of these narratives that were going around, they thought that that was a really wholesome clip. And a lot of people were praising Cheryl Miller, like, thank you for at least standing up for her in a time where it didn't feel like anybody else was. And so I like that, Cheryl Miller basically said, I saw a piece of myself in Caitlyn Clark. I know what it feels like to be hated. Now, she also said that Caitlyn brought some of it upon herself. And I guess, in a sense, if you do any sort of trash talking, you can bring people to not like you. But I think anybody at any level, there's no superstar. Let me think about that for a second. Maybe there's not no superstar, but there's very rarely superstars that everyone's a fan of. And especially when it comes to sports, right? If you are a Boston Celtics fan, you probably don't like LeBron. If you're a Lakers fan, you probably don't like Jason Tatum. Like, there will always be those rivalries and things. But the kind of hate and narrative that was surrounding Caitlyn Clark was much different than, oh, I just don't like you because you're on the opposing team. And I think that's what she's alluding to.
Instead of complaining, Miller's message was clear and simple. Embrace it. Because if you don't, you're just holding the game back.
Brooklyn logo bomb from Caitlyn Clark.
Not to pick up the second because she got 2 in the first quarter against Connecticut.
Clark connects on a 3.
Cheryl Miller isn't about making excuses. She knows talent when she sees it, and she understands the grind it takes to be great. Caitlyn Clark isn't some overnight sensation. She's a player who's put in the work, shattered records, and earned every bit of her hype. If some WNBA legends refuse to acknowledge that, that's on them. Miller made it clear. Caitlyn Clark belongs here, and the stats speak for themselves.
Caitlyn Clark asks for the ball, and that's why.
She has done throughout her career at multiple levels.
Tina Charles just had 2 points.
Now, here's where things get even funnier. After Cheryl Miller's interview went viral, Sheryl Swoopes suddenly went real quiet. The same Swoopes who had so much to say before. Nowhere to be found. Fans noticed, and social media went wild with reactions. People were saying things like, Cheryl Miller just put Swoopes in a blender and hit the power button. Swoopes thought she was the gatekeeper, but Cheryl Miller came in and kicked the whole gate down. Miller reminded Swoopes who the real boss is. It's almost like the reality of the situation finally hit. When a true basketball queen speaks, everyone else better take notes. At the end of the day, Cheryl Miller didn't just defend Caitlyn Clark. She shut down every weak argument thrown her way.
Momentum last season with Caitlyn Clark entering the WNBA. Now you have the next draft class coming in. You have the Paige Beckers, you have the Olivia Miles, you have the Sonia Citron, you have the Dominique Malonga, you have all of these highly anticipated players. You have the Hailey Van Lith, who are going to be stepping into the WNBA next. And then in a few years, you have the Juju Watkins and you have the Hannah Hidalgos. And so I love the fact that they have to stay in college for 4 years, not only for them and for making money, but also just for the game in itself. With men's college basketball, it is so hard at this point to really invest in certain players and certain teams because a lot of the greatest players are one and done. I'm totally with her here. I think it does need to stay like this. Even if you see somebody who might be ready to play in the league during their sophomore season or during their junior season, it should stay like this for the sake of the game, for the sake of the women, for how much money they make. And hopefully within the next 5-10 years, you will be making a significant amount of money on your WNBA salary.
Cheryl Miller reminded everyone that basketball isn't about who gets permission to shine. It's about who puts in the work and gets the job done. Caitlyn Clark is here to stay, and as far as Cheryl Miller is concerned, anyone still doubting her is stuck in the past. As for Sheryl Swoopes, well, she might want to sit this one out because Miller just handed her an L she won't forget anytime soon. If there's one woman in basketball history who deserves nothing but respect, it's Cheryl Miller. We're talking about one of the most dominant forces to ever touch a basketball, a player who changed the game long before the world was ready to fully embrace women's hoops. And here's the kicker. Cheryl Miller sees something in Caitlyn Clark that reminds her of herself because, make no mistake, before Caitlyn Clark was rewriting history, Cheryl Miller had already burned those books to ashes.
Wyndham. Cheryl Miller in the corner. Miller will take that shot all day and make it.
most of the second half, and that is when USC has made their comeback. But now
Let's take a deep dive into the legend of Cheryl Miller, the accolades that prove she was light years ahead of her time, and why she has an undeniable appreciation for Caitlin Clark. Before there was a WNBA, before women's college basketball gained mainstream attention, and before social media could amplify talent like it does today, there was Cheryl Miller. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was completely transforming it. Before Miller even set foot in college, she was already breaking records and leaving defenders in the dust. She scored 105 points in a single high school game. Yes, you read that right, 105 points. She was named National High School Player of the Year twice, and was so dominant that she became the top recruit in the country during an era when female basketball players were barely getting the recognition they deserved. Cheryl Miller didn't just play the game. She became the game, and she was already a superstar before she even hit the college scene.
Half of this women's national championship game from UCLA. Hatmaker to Sheila Collins. Collins drives the paint, tries to put up the shot.
Collins took the lane, and there were 3 SC players on.